Hello, welcome back to the Real Human Project. This is our public podcast. It's where we shine a light on some of the real human stories recorded by our members. Our project is open to everyone, so please go to realhuman.io to record your episode. Today we're getting to know Brenda Ha. Brenda has a wonderful story. It spans growing up above her parents' fruit market, a successful career at one of Canada's largest banks, and now helping to start a new national women's soccer league. What she does best of all, though, is to share the invaluable advice that she's received from her parents, her colleagues, and her mentors. This episode is packed with insight and lessons that I've been able to use in my life, and I'm excited for you to have a listen. Now, I'll hand it over to our AI-powered host, Sam, and their interview with Brenda Ha.
Why don't you tell me about the home and neighborhood you grew up in?
I was born on Eglinton in an apartment on top of the store my parents first started in I guess it's late 60s, early 70s when they arrived to Toronto. They were immigrants and they came here with very little and in totally different industries than they ended up in. My dad was a factory worker and my mom was a nurse in Germany, which is where they met. And they came to Canada to build a life for themselves. So we grew up on top of Parkway Fruit Market, which was their first store in their food business. And they luckily chose North Toronto, which is an incredible neighborhood where I lived throughout my childhood.
It sounds like you had a humble beginning in an apartment above your parents' store. Now tell me about the best teacher you ever had.
Hmm. The best teacher I ever had was my dad. And I say that because I learned so much about life through his being, his aura, his relationships, his work ethic. I really admired him and how much he built a legacy out of nothing except for a dream. And that really sticks with me as I am now a parent and have children who are essentially teenagers, just giving them guidance and showing them how I was taught, what I was taught. I think is really important to me because of the significant impression and influence my dad had on me.
It's incredibly special that your dad was your best teacher, Brenda. The lessons you learned from him about life and building a legacy are truly invaluable. Now, who have you learned the most from in your career?
In my career, I will say that I learned the most from a manager named Dave Ravel. Dave, from very early days at BMO, was first my manager and my mentor. And then he became a champion and advocate for me. And I always appreciated that. And so did my dad. I remember the first summer that I worked at BMO for Dave. And at the end of my internship, it was a summer job, my dad wrapped a huge fruit basket for Dave. And I had to bring it in a car and transport it from my trunk to Dave's trunk. And Dave was overwhelmed by the size of it. Dave taught me so much about leadership and really took me under his wing and showed me the ropes at the bank. And I really credit a lot of my early success at BMO by just watching him in action. And I felt so lucky to have, and in good fortune to have his support. And I really felt like he championed me throughout my career.
Dave sounds like a wonderful mentor. Now, changing gears, who is the most successful person you know?
The way I define success is to feel balance, to feel fulfilled in not only your career, but in goal setting and goal achievement and finding that right balance between your pursuits. So, work life balance, the balance between self care and care for others. I think the most successful person I know right now at this moment, I feel like it's me. Like I have really been able to design my life in such a way that I feel so much fulfillment in a lot of areas of my life because of the balance. There have definitely been times in my life where it's been out of balance and that doesn't feel good. Um, but I'm feeling really good right now. So I guess my answer to this question is that I feel like I'm successful, but not necessarily in, the monetary sense or career fulfillment sense. I think it's in life success and having achieved what is fulfilling to me.
That's a wonderful perspective on success, Brenda. Now, what is something you like about yourself?
So I think I'm personable, and people see me as being very open and welcoming and warm. I'm known as the welcome wagon in our neighborhood because when new people come to the street, I typically go knock on their door and introduce myself and offer my number. So I think that's what I like most about myself is I'm open to new experiences and enjoy relationships with people.
Your ability to relate to others and your open nature are wonderful qualities, Brenda. Now, what is something about yourself you wish you could change?
I do think I'm stubborn sometimes, and being a little stubborn and hard-headed and maybe hot-headed in those moments have closed me off to one relationship in particular that I'm just not able to get past. So maybe what I might wish to change about myself is the need to hold grudges.
Switching gears on your very best day at work, the day you come home and think you have the best job in the world, what did you do that day?
On that day, I probably got two sides that were not agreeing or in dispute to come together and resolve the issue. Maybe closed a deal or, won an RFP, working with people and celebrating a win. I think that's probably what happened that day.
That sounds rewarding. Now, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and who gave you that advice?
The best piece of advice I've ever been given is you don't ask, you don't get. So just, if you want something, you go ask for it. And what's the worst that could happen? They could say no. I think it was either Dave or my dad that told me that, but I've always stuck to that motto. That's my life motto. And it's really served me well.
You don't ask, you don't get is great advice. What are three words that define who you are?
I would say collaborative, trustworthy, and loyal.
Collaborative, trustworthy, and loyal. Great choices. Can you tell me about a childhood friend who you are no longer in touch with but holds a special place in your heart? Why was this person special to you?
Yes, definitely. J. Choi was a childhood friend who we're no longer really in touch, but she does hold a special place in my heart because we live close by. She too was Korean. Our situations were very similar. She had an older sister, she had an older brother. Her parents were in the convenience store business. So our stories were very similar, our paths were similar. We would hang out in the summer times at the pool at Eglinton Park, just spend all our days and sometimes the evenings by the pool. And it was just such a fun, innocent time. That was our childhood. And it was just so fun and carefree and just really warm and wonderful. And she was definitely my best friend. We have a lot of memories of doing the exact same thing every day, but having so much fun doing it.
Now, Brenda, when was the last time you really tested your mental or physical limits?
I would say that was probably in childbirth and post-childbirth. I wouldn't say I had the worst childbirths, but I also wouldn't say they were the easiest. So those were some stressful times. I think physically, I really challenged myself in running a half marathon in the early 2000s for 4 kids, which was just a challenge I put to myself. Um, yeah.
Childbirth and running a half marathon are definitely ways to push your limits. Now, tell me about a moment that was a real turning point in your life, regardless of whether you realized it at the time.
A real turning point in my life was when my dad got sick. He was 63. At the time that I was living in Boston, working at a very small startup, and I'd been there for, I guess, a year and a half. And I had to make a decision on whether to stay there or come home and spend time with my dad because he had cancer. And it was, I think we all knew that it was not a good situation. That was, I think, a shock to my system and to life as I knew it. And just thinking about not having him in my life anymore because I suppose for 23 years, he had just always been there and available and around and would drop everything for me and my brother and sister, but mostly for me because I was daddy's little girl, the third one, the baby. So I think that was a real turning point. I really grew up then and realized that life was finite.
I can only imagine how the prospect of losing your dad would be a major turning point. Now, what's something you learned from your parents, either your mom or your dad?
I learned so much from my parents. I learned to be humble. I learned to have gratitude, to not take for granted really anything, whether that be food or shelter, whether that be money or people in our lives. I really learned to be grateful and feel blessed and to make sure that I told people how much I appreciated them.
That's such an important lesson, Brenda. Being humble and practicing gratitude can truly shape our lives and relationships. Next, I have some rapid fire questions for you, Brenda. Try to answer with one word or two. Here comes the first question: cake or ice cream?
Cake,
Favorite sandwich?
BLT,
Childhood hero?
my dad,
Career you wish you could have?
probably being a doctor.
What's your superpower?
Being real?
Do you believe in love at first sight?
Yeah.
What have I not asked you about today that I should have?
What will my legacy be once I'm gone? I hope that my legacy is that I have left behind children who are incredible people that pursue their dreams and share that perspective with me of loving people, helping people, relating to people, wishing for people the best, being positive and optimistic about the future, despite some of the crazy shit that goes on in the world today. And I hope that my legacy is having had an impact on, I don't know, a city, a country. We're trying to build a soccer league here in Canada, and it has a lot to do with raising the bar and promoting women in sports. But I think the conversation is bigger than that. It's about gender equity and justice, it's about diversity and inclusion, and it's about community. I do hope that my legacy lives on beyond me. And if I can make a small dent in the world that way, that would be really fulfilling for me.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, Brenda. People will love hearing the stories you've shared. This is a public podcast, so it's only as good as the people who are willing to participate. If you would like to take part, go to realhuman.io to record your own episode. We can't wait to hear from you. This is Sam, and you have been listening to the Real Human Project. Goodbye.